the roof seems coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. It's probably been about, maybe a week since we dropped some new content on our YouTube channel. And as I announced on Twitter and social media feeds and so on and so forth, it's always good to check in with the top brass of Cricket West Indies to kind of do what I call a State of the Union address and see what the state of play is for West Indies cricket across the year, and taking all kind of like the key talking points. You, the fans, have sent in questions as well, and I'm honoured to have Johnny Grave with us, CEO of Cricket West Indies. Obviously, you all know him; he's been on before. Johnny, how you doing?
Yeah, well, thanks. Yeah, pleasure to be on as usual.
Yeah, no doubt, Johnny. And like I said at the top, I just kind of wanted to invite you back on because I think you know as well as I do that West Indies cricket has so much written about it and said about it, and sometimes I think people forget that it's easier to just go and ask the people that can actually answer the questions rather than speculate about a whole heap of things and just get some clarity on various talking points. So thank you for giving us some time today. And literally, for those who are watching, this is literally going to just work as an ordinary interview. I could have done this off YouTube and written up an article about it, but I just prefer to ask Johnny face to face for the benefit of the fans as well. So Johnny, let's get straight into it. And I guess where I want to start, first things first, is so we're in March now of 2022. We've already had an under-19 World Cup in the Caribbean itself, which was great to see. We've seen the men's team play England at home and win in really what I would say was probably the first real cricket in 2 years where lots of fans were present. Not full houses, but you know what I mean, where actual lots of fans are present. We've obviously gone to India and back as well. And as we record, the women's team is about maybe 4 hours away from taking the field against New Zealand as well in the first of their 8 games or 7 games, I believe it is, in the Women's World Cup. So already a lot has happened at the start of the year. But I guess the first question I really want to pose to you is, how is 2022 looking for CWI? I guess in light of the fact that this is what I'm going to say the first full year of cricket. The pandemic's not finished, but I hope you get what I mean in terms of a possible way to chart a year without the pandemic hanging over every single aspect of logistics and trying to go here, there, and everywhere. It's still there. It hasn't gone away, but just not as heavy as it once was in the last 2 years.
Yeah, look, I think you're right. I think we're all exhausted and fatigued from COVID and everything that it sort of presents, particularly from as you say, logistics and medical and government and everything perspective, really. And yeah, when you sort of say how much has happened already this year, it's probably makes me feel we're all so tired. But it's it's been a disappointing start to the year on the field, I'll be honest. Starting against Ireland and misfiring with some COVID, having to cancel matches, having again come home early from Pakistan and having that headache. So the year didn't start well, and it was just brilliant for us to see the Under-19 Cricket World Cup go so well, the pitches be so good, the feedback from the players in terms of the quality of facilities and the all-round team effort from volunteers to ground staff to governments to our local boards and associations and all the Under-19 World Cup team and our friends at the ICC to have pulled off that during a pandemic. The volume of cricket, the 4 countries, 80% of the participants being minors. I mean, just every complication you could throw into the mix. and then to sort of finish that month of January with, dare I say it, normality. You know, an amazing atmosphere at Kensington. West Indies playing the sort of brand of cricket we want, winning as well, in I guess what the fans would want, which is a tight and exciting finish. I would have preferred 3-0 and and relax a bit towards the end. But it was a great start. And then obviously India didn't go to plan at all. But you know, we know how good India are, and you know, we're still developing, I think, in both one day and post World Cup in the T20 format, and obviously not long before we're down under playing another World Cup. So yeah, I think we're getting to that point. We've got the AGM next week, sort of reviewing the year. You know, another nigh on $10 million loss to go on the back of the one last year. So, you know, big deficits. But we're forecasting, and I'm sort of holding back my excitement, a really, really exciting year for 2022 on and off the field. We know COVID is still there. Who knows, could wake up in the morning and there's X number of positive cases, and yeah, we're back to square one. But we're desperately hoping that we'll have a really successful England tour and a safe tour where we can get through all the games, and then breathe a big sigh of relief in April, and then look forward to what's going to be, you know, an unprecedented amount of cricket in any year, let alone coming out of COVID. And it's been 2 very, very difficult years. But if you'd told me, you know, in March 2020 that we were going to get through a global pandemic, to have played the amount of cricket, to have launched new initiatives like playing women's A-team cricket, to have played all the formats, red ball and white ball and youth, to have not lost a single job or employee, or not have to cut any players, umpires, or anyone from the system, I probably would have said that you were mad. But so to have got through that, I think we can reflect that things could have been a lot worse. And what we desperately hope is that the next 8 months and beyond are going to look significantly better.
Most definitely. And actually, even in your answer there, I forgot some things that had even happened. Do you know, like, the first 3 months of this year have been so hectic, I forgot what happened in Pakistan. I actually forgot the team went home early, and that was only 3 months ago. So I totally get your point about it's been a hectic start to the year. And actually, just coming off the back of what you said about the World Cup, how much of that was a dry run ahead of 2024, of course, because we host the T20 World Cup with the United States. I'm not saying we're going to run it in a similar way to how we did the Under-19 World Cup, but was there an element with the Under-19 World Cup of needing to see how we can host? I know we hosted the 2007 World Cup, but that was a long time ago. So was there an element of needing to see an updated version of the logistics of running a global tournament in the Caribbean, the United States notwithstanding?
Yeah, I think so. I viewed it very much as a continuation of 2018 when we hosted that Women's World T20.
Of course, yeah.
And kind of, you know, no one would say it, but I think there was lots of doubt and skepticism as, can the West Indies really pull off this global event? The 2017 Women's World Cup had been such a success, full house at Lord's Cricket Ground. You know, is women's cricket now going to be set back because we're going to the Caribbean? And what will Cricket West Indies be able to do? And in actual fact, what we did was put on an amazing event with, you know, the first game in Guyana had a big crowd, a record score by the Indian side. You know, I've never seen a full house at St. Lucia, but when West Indies played England women in St. Lucia, the Darren Stafford Stadium was absolutely packed. And then our obviously team, you know, unfortunately didn't quite make it to the final, lost in the semi-final. But to have a neutral final in Antigua and to have, you know, 10,000 plus fans in the stands and a big after party in the car park, you know, it was an amazing occasion. And I think 2022 was an even bigger challenge. You know, it's the biggest ICC event. You've got 16 teams who never go home from the start to the finish. If they get knocked out, they play in the plate. We're playing against four different countries. As I said earlier, you know, the TV crew is a massive. 80% of the participants are still minors, which obviously from a duty of care perspective makes it all a bit more challenging. And for us to have pulled that off in the midst of a global pandemic with a new highly infectious variant, I think was an outstanding achievement, and one that we should all be very proud of. And that, further demonstrates that the Cricket West Indies are a well-run, well-established organisation that can host global events to a very, very high standard, and that we could only do that with unbelievable support from our governments. We get better support from our governments probably than anyone else in world cricket when it comes to hosting cricket. And when you put that together with our territorial boards and local associations and the pride that everyone takes in the Caribbean being on that world stage, the cooperation and that unique Caribbean hospitality and welcome and friendliness just shone through to all the teams that participated. So, I think it's one that we can rightly be very proud, and therefore, to answer your question, look forward with 2024 with real excitement and confidence that we can, host another men's event in the Caribbean and take the game to another level and to hopefully a new market and new audiences with, that what we're all expecting and hoping, which is a much deeper connection and engagement to that diaspora and cricket fan in the US who've never had an event of this magnitude before.
Most definitely. And you talk about logistics, so that's kind of like the global logistics an under-19 World Cup. And I must say as well, apologies to all for not referencing the Women's World Cup, of course, which was held in the Caribbean. But domestically, we've restarted the 4-day game, and I'm sure that's come with its own issues behind the scenes in terms of trying to get off the ground. But it's gone off. It's gone off, and I mean, I was watching, sorry, I should say, on the feeds themselves across I had all three open, kind of like watching between the different games at any one time. But the biggest question I think a lot of people have had about the domestic tournament is that, so we've had the 2 rounds now, in Barbados and Trinidad, and then we've got the next 3 rounds coming in May. Was there a reason? So normally, if it was a normal year, we would have those games usually. Would we not usually have them during IPL or something like that? So was it a case of with scheduling the next 3 in May? How much of that was down to COVID, government logistics, IPL? What was the reasoning to wait so long for the next round of games?
It's a good question. I mean, a number of factors. Look, in a normal year, we would always want to play 10 first-class games. From broadly speaking, post-Super 50, so maybe a couple of rounds before Christmas, but certainly January through to that end of April period. And a pretty unrelenting schedule of playing, and traveling on a bilateral basis, so hosting the teams and playing away. Clearly, we got to December and we knew we weren't going to be able to pull off logistically, medically, financially 10 rounds. It just was never going to happen. And then I think it came, well, at what point do you have integrity in the competition? If we'd been really, really aggressive, we could have probably gone with 10 rounds. It would have put us under massive financial strain. And if anything had gone wrong, probably made us look all a bit, at best, overly optimistic, at worst, stupid. And so we pretty much said, look, from a competition perspective, it's really difficult to play 10. And we can play international cricket during the championship, and of course we have to. But if you're taking out test players and 18 players, then you're weakening that that competition significantly. So we pretty much settled on 5 as a starting point. We obviously hadn't played any red ball cricket at all since the pandemic, when we curtailed it after 8 rounds in this time 2 years ago. So we thought 5 was more sensible. We wanted to restart, in actual fact, in January, and had to keep pushing it back because of flight schedules, logistics, Omicron, testing players, etc. So we ended up, as you say, getting 2 rounds. I don't think probably fans realise, and I don't think players certainly realise, that those 2 rounds of the West Indies Championship would have cost us about $1 million. So it's an expensive form of cricket to play, and logistically flying teams around at the moment, you only have to go on the regional websites and try and find flights on certain days, weeks and routes. It's very, very expensive at the moment to fly inter-island, and 2, there are not daily flights by any means, and at best weekly, and even then you have to overnight. And obviously, every time you have to overnight, you have to retest, and therefore
Yep.
it presents lots of risks. So, in fact, we thought that the best thing to do is play 5. Let's try and get 2 away. We'll spend $1 million. We still don't know if England's going to, and we still don't know, but we hope England's going to happen, and we'll get those revenues in, and then we can pause again, and then we'll have the cash flow, we'll have the certainty, we'll have the model to refine, and then go again for 3. So, in a sense, this is about preparing our players for international cricket. Normally, we take a more long-term view. This is about playing red ball cricket for our 90 professional players on contracts, and it's about having a robust regional program underneath international. But I think what it's ended up being this year is about preparing players for Test match cricket and helping our selectors to identify talent who's in form and help the players get into form. So we encouraged all the franchises to play as many trial games as they could pre-Christmas and post-Christmas, leading into what we hope would be a really competitive first-class system, playing at venues that had hosted a lot of cricket, Brian Lara Academy, Queen's Park Oval, and Kensington Oval that had hosted under-19s in the England games. We wanted to get really good surfaces and really good competitive cricket and then give the players a break. Not played any 4-day cricket for so long, physically would have been demanding. That led most of them coming immediately into Antigua for a camp, and then some of them obviously playing at the moment in the President's 11, and then 3 back-to-back Test matches for England. Again, pausing a bit in April. Some players will be lucky enough to go over to play county cricket for a few months, and then, a few weeks, and then restarting very much so we lead in again to a President's 11 game, and then 2 Test matches against Bangladesh. So I can understand fans' frustration that we're not playing 10 rounds and that this isn't helping to develop players that have missed a lot of cricket. But realistically, financially and logistically, we just had to take a more conservative view and say, let's play half the games, let's be more certain, and let's use it to prepare players for Test cricket.
Yeah, I think taking that last line there, I think if there's one thing, and I mean, having interviewed some of the players over the last year, with the best will in the world, best versus best, what obviously it needed to happen, but with the best will in the world, it wasn't ever going to be the right or adequate, I should say, replacement for a 4-day competition. So yeah, I totally see where you're coming from with that in terms of at least getting the certainty of some cricket, competitive cricket for the players. Now, with that said, though, last year, 2021, we had Super 50 in February, which we normally wouldn't do. Normally, we'd have that at the end of November, around November, October-ish.
Yeah.
Does that mean Super 50 will return this year in its normal, if all things go well, in its normal calendar slot?
Yeah, that's the plan. I think, and what it would enable from a scheduling perspective is our Test players would have the opportunity to play some 50 over cricket, and I know a number of them, certainly haven't ruled out playing 50 over cricket, so it gives them an opportunity to prove to the selectors what they can do. They'll then actually go down under to Australia to compete in a Test series, and then hopefully the returning World Cup squad will come back and be able to play the latter part of the Super 50 when we get into those all-important semi-finals and finals, or final group games ahead of getting into the semi-finals and finals. So it will bridge effectively that World Cup with our Test players being able to play hopefully the first part, and then T20 World Cup players coming back to play the latter part. So that's the current working plan. And again, from a Test point of view, we really wanted to get some A-team cricket back. So shortly after the Bangladesh series, we're hoping to have 3 A-team Test matches. So again, from a red ball perspective, almost giving players from January playing some local cricket in trial matches through February Championship, England series, then the Championship again, Bangladesh series, A-team series ahead of CPL, that our red ball cricketers can almost have, what would that be, 7-8 months of red ball cricket, which compared to where we were in 2021, that's a decent run. So, and then they'll have a break for CPL, potentially Super 50, and then go down under to play. So in terms of keeping our red ball cricketers very active in competitive cricket, we think we've got a plan together. And then clearly, what we're hoping for is in 2023, we could return to pure normality and have 10 rounds of West Indies Championship, teams flying on a on a Monday, playing Thursday, Sunday, and playing on a bilateral basis in 2 back-to-back games or 3 back-to-back games, and then a bit of a rest in between.
With the A team, have you sounded any sides out yet, or is that kind of still in kind of negotiation period?
We have, yeah. We're taking
You're
a
not allowed
proposal.
to say, no doubt.
We're taking a proposal to our board of directors on Thursday for A-team cricket, and we'll be making announcements shortly after that. But yeah, we've got someone lined up for the red ball. We again, you can imagine Jimmy Adams and Graham Wester asking me daily whether we can also have some white ball A-team cricket. So in an ideal world, we'll have a 50 over white ball series of A-team cricket, probably end of June, July. And then we'll have a red ball specific. We've got the red ball pretty much nailed down, and white ball still, in case Jimmy and Graham listen to this, it's right at the top of my list.
I wait with bated breath to see how that unfolds. Now, obviously, as we're recording this, the first test begins. I think Tuesday is it Tuesday? I can't remember the days now. Next week. Obviously, England commercially is an important tour. Never mind even winning on the pitch, which of course is important, but commercially it's an important tour. I think I recently saw that Kensington Oval is allowing, is it 80% now? What's the fan situation saying Antigua and Grenada? Is that going to be 50% or full house, or not yet decided?
I don't think we're going to have any restrictions in capacity in Antigua and Grenada. And you're right, we're currently at 80% in Barbados, and whether that changes or not, I don't know. I don't expect it to change. And yeah, I think, look, at the moment it's encouraging commercially. Obviously, we've got the new agreement with BT Sport, which was, we were all absolutely delighted with, and it's been going really well. This is obviously a massive tour for them, but the T20s, you could argue, can't any better with a 3-2 win to West Indies. And look, we've got a very proud record in Test cricket against England, and we won in 2019, and we're all desperate for the team to do well and rekindle what they did this time last year by going to Bangladesh and winning there, and again being successful against England. So yeah, as I said earlier, sort of I've got this handbrake on my excitement, but we really want the England tour to go well on and off the field, and then we're really looking forward to an exciting summer. And I don't want to dub down how simple our business is, but we make money from ICC events, from playing England and playing India, and everything else that we do costs a significant amount of money, more than probably everyone would imagine. So England tours, India tours, and ICC events are the lifeblood of the organisation, really.
Yeah, most definitely. And actually that kind of links nicely into my next question. So I had a question from one of our listeners, I think it was Dominic, and he said, when will West Indies play more than 2 test series, or when will we play more than 2 tests in the series? I'm not saying this question correctly, but you know what I'm trying to say. Now, I didn't answer it. But what I wanted to say to him was, we can't afford to. But I'm gonna hand the floor to you, because, to be honest, Johnny, I'm not sure how many fans fully understand, and that's no slight on Dominic, I'm talking generally now, how much money is lost hosting Test cricket. Now, I don't know if you're allowed to or even want to go into the sums and the figures, but let's use Bangladesh. I cannot imagine that West Indies versus Bangladesh at home, even in a 2 test match series, is anything other than a loss-making endeavor. But it's important to play them. Help the fans understand, Johnny, what it all means financially, and why 2 test series are basically here to stay almost. Or maybe I'm being naive in saying that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not very complicated, to be honest. I'm a purist, so I would always say Test cricket should be, a 3-match series. And I mean, all Test cricket, I'd go as far as to say Ashes cricket, all should be 3 tests. Really exciting. Play them, start on a Wednesday, start on a Thursday, start on a Friday. Keep them compact, keep the narrative amongst fans, keep the focus, keep the excitement going, even if you lose the first one. And not have too many dead rubbers. And obviously the World Test Championship, which has been launched on the eve of a pandemic, not great. But I think as the World Test Championship kicks in and people realise that you're still paying for points and you can still make the final, and the final becomes a bigger spectacle, fans will probably understand two-match series a bit more, because it's the context of that World Test Championship League, which is still massively in its infancy. And I watched some of the Ashes series. I didn't hear the World Test Championship spoken about once. If England had won in Hobart, they would have got X number of points in the championship and go off the bottom. It's still a new narrative for everyone to sort of get behind. But the reality is, it doesn't matter whether it's Bangladesh, Australia, South Africa, everyone in world cricket, if we play in Test match cricket, we will lose significant sums of money against. We only make money, and I'd include 50 over cricket, T20 cricket. We only make money when we play England and India. And the costs of our 18 retained players who are earning monthly salaries, their match fees, the TV broadcast equipment, the stadiums, the charter flights, the hotels, the catering, the ground transportation, the everything. There is no way in the short term or medium term, I think, West Indies cricket will make money hosting Test cricket. And obviously, as a Test cricket fan, that's a depressing thought, but it's still the pinnacle of the game. It's still the toughest a version of the game that we play, and it's still the game that the players know that they will be remembered for, if they want to be remembered by and valued by fans as a truly great player. And as long as that continues, and as long as we, I guess, as administrators, cherish Test cricket and use it to invest in players, then I think it will, it will stand the test of time. So it's 2 Test series makes it much more viable for us. And I'd only see us playing 3 Test series against England.
Can't be any more clear than that. And I'm going off on a tangent by saying this.
But I would imagine I'd play a 10-match series against England. So we play Test match every single one of our. We could start in Jamaica or Ghana and just work north or south, and they could come for 6 months and they'd love it.
The fans would love it, I'll tell you that much. I guess it's worth asking you, just because ordinary fans, and I include myself in this, would say the ICC could do more to make Test cricket viable financially for the nations who can't make money out of it. But is that actually possible? Or is that just fans thinking that could be the case? So when I'm saying something like that, I'm talking something like, is a central pot viable at an ICC level? Whether that could happen in terms of people voting for that or not, that's another question. But is that a viable option to fix the loss-making situation?
Well, I certainly think it would help. I think the Test match fund that the ICC had for a few years, I thought was a good initiative, and I'd certainly welcome its return. The ICC only does what its members want, and whether West Indies could get enough consensus amongst the other 4 members to reintroduce it, I don't know. But certainly it's something that we think is a good idea, because it protects Test cricket. It sort of takes away any brutal P&L analysis of Test cricket, because you would have that from a funding. It also, in my opinion, it would cover everyone playing Test cricket, including those 3 nations that are outside of the World Test Championship, to encourage them to continue to play 5-day Test cricket. And I think it would be a great initiative. And it also, in terms of the distribution of ICC revenues, you're not getting into percentages and stuff. Everyone just gets a fixed Test match fund figure, and everyone can commit, therefore, to playing a minimum number of matches in the in the World Test Championship. And certainly if it was a big enough Test match fund per annum, then maybe then every series could be 3 Test matches.
Most definitely. And I guess that's one for the newspaper columns, the newspaper inches, etc., to continue to debate that and see if that changes in the world game going forward. Sorry, Johnny. There's been a lot written recently about CPL, T20. Recently, I saw an article suggesting we might be having some women's T20 this year. I know that there may possibly not be a whole lot you can say on this topic, but that's T20, T10, and all of that is kind of seen as a way to make some money. Do we have plans in place?
We do. Yeah, we've got some really exciting conversations going on with CPL. We entered into a new MOU with them probably about 6 months ago now, that talked about working together in partnership and fostering new ideas, creativity. It's been a big push by Ricky Skerritt and the new administration to forge greater links with CPL, and certainly that's always been my philosophy. I think CPL to many fans is a real shop window for what Caribbean cricket is all about. Packed stands, fans enjoying the cricket, and top level international cricket being played. So yeah, we got some really exciting plans. We're probably going to announce them in the course of, I'd imagine, the next few weeks. Firstly, the window of playing immediately after the New Zealand series, and squeezing it in, because as soon as that final is played, we'll all be heading to Australia for the World Cup. But we've managed to protect the window, so again, that we're not making players or forcing players to choose between CPL and West Indies cricket, which is still sort of one of the sort of the 10 commandments that we have at the moment in terms of how we try and balance all the issues within choice of players that they now have. And the women's investment is massive for us. But again, with the World Cup going on, we need to have a women's regional tournament. We've got to have an under-19 girls women's tournament, because the under-19 World Cup will hopefully be January of next year. So we've got to build that whole program in women's under-19 cricket. And then we've got the Commonwealth Games, in which Barbados women are representing us. So it's a pretty packed schedule for the women that's being developed. So I think what we'll do is we will have some exciting plans around CPL in August, September of this year. And then looking ahead to next year, certainly if we could plan it perfectly, we would, depending on where you start the year, but let's say we start with CPL in September, October, September, short break to change format into Super 50 in November, protect the Christmas period because everyone wants to be home with friends and families over the Christmas period and New Year. West Indies Championship, January through to April, maybe May time. And certainly April, May gives some of our white ball cricketers who don't get IPL contracts the opportunity to play some red ball cricket, which has its advantages. And certainly that back end of May then becomes an opportunity where maybe we could have what I would call a sort of state of origin style T20 top competition, no overseas players, just a shop window for the best players in the Caribbean who don't play IPL cricket, to play against each other, televise it, show all the franchise owners, selectors, head coaches what the young talent and youth talent is coming through, and then have a big televised draft for the CPL based on those performances, with the CPL then happening again in that sort of traditional August, September slot. But that's a sort of vague working plan for 2023. But as you can imagine, that seems quite a way off at the moment.
Yeah, most definitely. And actually, you let slip there that the New Zealand series is going. So New Zealand, we have to fulfill some fixtures with them, I think, due to the ODI Super League. So does that mean we can expect New Zealand to be turning up in the Caribbean this year? Well, as a plan for them to turn up.
Yeah, so the plan is effectively after the West Indies Championship finishes, some of our best red ball players will stay back and play against Bangladesh in a warm-up game, probably under a President's 11 banner again. The white ball cricketers will go to Holland for the 3 ODIs that were announced a few weeks ago. They'll then immediately fly to Pakistan to complete the 3 ODIs that was cancelled before Christmas. They'll then immediately fly back the day after, or the next day after that third ODI is the day after the warm-up game against Bangladesh. And 2 days later, we'll go into a Bangladesh test match, followed by another Bangladesh test match. Then we've got 3 ODIs and 3 T20s against Bangladesh. And then immediately after that, we've got the visit of India for 3 ODIs and 5 T20s. And then immediately after that, we've got New Zealand for 3 T20s and 3 ODIs. And then immediately after that, we've got the CPL.
Listen,
And
this calendar is nuts.
then immediately after the CPL final, we fly immediately to Australia to play 3 T20 internationals before, which finish on the night before the ICC support period starts, and then we'll have the 2 mandatory warm-up games and then go into that first round in the T20 World Cup. So that jigsaw has, as you can imagine, zero flexibility. There is not one day spare, and it's knitted together very tightly to try and make the West Indies Championship and the effectively the Australia Test matches. So as soon as we finish the World Cup, we've got 2 warm-up games in Australia, a 3-day game and then a 4-day game, and then 2 Test matches back home for Christmas. So there is no flex in that at all, and it's going to be a big challenge to the administrators operationally, but a massive challenge also to team management and players. I feel a bit more for the team management because one, they get, as you know, a lot of cussing out, and secondly, there's no sort of specialists in that management team. They don't get the break of a break in format because they're not in the T20 squad or they're not playing Test cricket. So again, we're going to have to be very careful how we manage and rotate not just players but also team management to make sure that everyone's fresh, that we're not getting flat. And I think Ashley Giles summed it up quite well after the Ashes, that you're not getting into that mindset of just fulfilling obligations and tours, actually still striving to win. And I think everyone has struggled with that balance because we're all desperate to fulfill fixtures, to fulfill commercial contracts, to get money into the bank, to fund everything. That you've got to maintain a real keen focus on that performance and ensuring that you win. And changes in formats, new players coming in who haven't played for a while, or new coaches coming in can just give that team a lift. And certainly that's what we need to do over the course of what's going to be, as I said from the outset. And that's just the international men's team. So, when you get me talk about the women and then the youth programs, then we all feel a bit jaded. But that whole summer we're looking to play under 19 girls, under 17 boys, under 15 boys, under 19 boys, with the under 19s returning to long form cricket. So girls under 19s playing T20, mirroring the World Cup. Boys 15s and 17s playing 50 over cricket, and under 19 boys playing 3-day cricket, because we haven't played any red ball cricket under 19s for a while. And then we're talking about those sort of the white ball 18 tour, the red ball 18 tour, and then the big women's regional tournament ahead of the Commonwealth Games, and then hopefully some involvement in CPL, and then we're looking to host an international tour in October, November time. So it's going to be a lot of cricket, we hope. So just got to get through this England tour, get this pandemic behind us, and then all systems go. Because if everything comes to plan, 2022 could beat all records for West Indies cricket from a revenue perspective. We pushed north of $70 million in 2019, and with a fair wind and a bit of good fortune, which I think we deserve, this could be a record financial year for us. And on the back of 2 nigh on $10 million losses, we could, if everything goes well, get back to almost level par, and that would be brilliant for us because it means that we would have a stable financial business. We'd have the asset of Coolidge Cricket Ground. We'd have no job losses under the pandemic. And looking ahead into 2023, which is a bumper year for the ICC, with the biggest event, the Men's World Cup, taking place in the biggest cricket market, India. The halo effect of those revenues in 2023 means it's a massive year for ICC, and therefore a big year for us from an ICC revenue perspective. The new cycle of the World Test Championship at the moment has us hosting India, so we'd have another big India tour in 2023. And then 2024, we've hopefully got this men's T20 World Cup. So you want to be very excited about our plans and the future and what that means to us as maybe getting to 2023 with the thing that we set out to do in 2017 and everyone said we were mad, which were to have 8-figure sums in reserves, which in US dollar terms, which I don't think West Indies cricket's ever probably had before. So at this stage we could be on track to deliver that, which is which is hard not to be excited about, but at the same time, it's very fragile, and I could have 20 Omicron cases tomorrow, and the first Test match in jeopardy.
Well,
So,
this is it. I mean, touch wood, all's going to plan so far. I think you're right to say let's try and get through the England tour first, and then reassess and reevaluate how things are after that. It's just worth noting, I'm hoping those who are listening with very keen ears, that Johnny also said that there were some warm-up games before the Australia test, and believe it or not, Johnny, that was the best thing I heard you say, because let's not kid ourselves, going to Australia is a hard tour for the West Indies, and I don't know how you've managed to factor in some warm-up games, but realistically, teams like West Indies and Bangladesh and so on and so forth, you need warm-up games before you play Australia. You can't just turn up. England can't just turn up cold. So there's no way we can turn up cold as well to go to Australia. So that's actually crucial in and of itself as well. But also,
the stars really aligned on that one, because clearly we're in Australia for a T20 World Cup. We can't possibly afford to fly all the way back to the Caribbean and then 2 weeks later fly all the way back with the test team. And because Australia needed to play some white ball international cricket immediately after the T20 World Cup, we had to stay, and obviously bit their arm off when they suggested, well, if you can't fly back and we want to play these white ball games immediately after the T20 World Cup, how about we offer you both a 3-day and 4-day game? Brilliant. I don't think they finished the sentence before Jimmy Adams and I bit their arm off and said, absolutely. So again, playing in Australia will be, a massive test, but, and hopefully that 3-day and 4-day game means that, having not played probably too much red ball cricket in the lead up to that, albeit we would have had that A-team tour, and we'll definitely have a test match camp in proceeding, heading down under with our test players. You think it gives the team a good opportunity to compete and go and do well.
Most definitely. And I think, bringing this ultimately to some kind of close, because the calendar is so packed, if everything goes off well, actually if the calendar goes as it is, that's presenting a lot of opportunities for players, provided they put their hands up. So I would like to think the West Indian players on all sides, men's, under-19s, women's, girls, etc., would look at the calendar and think, well, you know what? Provided I put my hand up, there are games for me to play. It's not a case in the pandemic where we effectively had to just survive on what we could, because there was no games for anybody else to play. So it's all very exciting. Johnny, as ever, I said to you before I started pressing record, this should take about 15 minutes. I knew it was a lie when I told you that, but I continued all the same. But thank you as ever for coming on, Johnny. I mean, we could go on for another hour if we wanted to, but I'd like to think that those who are listening to this, that this has kind of given you exactly what I wanted it to be, which is like, as I called it at the top, a State of the Union address, a kind of update as to where things are at with West Indies cricket, what we have to look forward to for the rest of the year and next year, and everything else in between that we've discussed. But thank you once again, Johnny, for coming on. It's always a pleasure when you come on the podcast.
No, likewise, always a pleasure, and anytime. We want fans to know what we're doing. We don't necessarily want to give you all the exclusives, but we do want to answer questions and try and give people an insight to what we're doing and what we're planning. And hopefully in the next few weeks you can get either Jimmy or Graham West on, and they can talk about. And one of the things that we're also developing is, well, what happens if you're not part of the 90 franchise players? How do we get the last cohort of under-19s has played no cricket, because since they went to play in that under-19, COVID came, and they haven't really been able to play any cricket at home either. So how did that last cohort of under-19s and the most recent one, how do we help them get into the next, or how do we help them over the next couple of years get into those franchise squads of 15 players? We've got the emerging players program in CPL. We're going to hopefully have the emerging players team in Super 50. But how do we do more to help, as you say, provide that excitement to those players that they're going to get opportunities, they're going to get support, and that we're going to give them every possible chance to get into those franchise teams in the next couple of years and continue a fully fledged professional career. So again, I don't want to go on again because I could, but I'll leave that for Jimmy and Graham West to talk to you about. And again, hopefully CPL can come on and talk about the plans for CPL, because touch wood, we're moving away from just playing in one island and getting back to some sort of normality in terms of how CPL can move around the region, and some, again, really exciting initiatives that we're working on with them that will be brilliant for them, but also brilliant for West Indies cricket.
I didn't even think to talk about that, but I'm not going to go into it now. But also, people, and I'll end with this, because there's so much cricket planned, all of you who get upset when West Indies play in certain islands and not others, I'd like to think that with all that cricket, everyone's going to get some kind of game at some point this year, due to how many teams are coming to the Caribbean. So everyone can hold tight in your respective islands. Cricket is on its way, COVID notwithstanding. And as Johnny says, I will endeavour to get both Graham West and Jimmy on to talk some more. But ladies and gentlemen, we hope you've enjoyed that one. That's been Johnny Grave, Cricket West Indies CEO. I've been Machel St. Patrick Hewitt, and this has been the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. Thank you and good night.
We rule the cricket world. Now the rule seems coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.